Circuit, where we are here for the second event of the season for the Maximum Networks VW Racing Cup, incorporating Goodyear Touring Car Trophy and TCR UK. It was a fantastic start to the season about 5 weeks ago now at Silverstone, and we are now here at a completely different circuit, a very old school circuit here at Castle Combe, but one that should hopefully provide support of the same ultra close racing that we had back then. Andy McEwen up here in the commentary box, qualifying just getting underway now here at the circuit. Delighted once again to be joined by Paul O'Neill. Paul, Silverstone last time out was a brilliant start to the season. I thought it set us up really nicely for the year ahead, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has. As you just joined us live, Dan Kirby absolutely sideways coming out of Tower Corner, I think that was. So yeah, great to be here. Fantastic circuit. We've waxed lyrical about how fantastic this circuit is, and of course how bumpy it is as well. And it's great to see these fantastic cars out there giving it the big un, mate.
It is a real driver's circuit. I mean, it's one of those where you look at a map of it and it looks very simple, just a load of right-handers, a couple of chicanes thrown in. It's not really until you get here and you stand trackside or you walk or drive around the track yourself till you realise just why it is such a challenge.
It is, and you know, I've actually only ever raced here once in 21 years of racing cars. As you can see, one of the Kents going through there. Yeah, it's a really difficult, challenging circuit, and you have to have a well set up chassis to take those bumps. And the curbs aren't that big, actually. They're pretty flat, but it's the bumps that set the car off, and the resonance through the dampers. As you can see there, look at that Hyundai as it comes through shot. Max Hart really struggling there. You can see the car looking bumping and bouncing as it tries to change direction under quite a heavy amount of load. So yeah, a fantastic circuit. It's a bit like Thruxton, except you haven't got the runoff. It's pretty savage. Look at that understeer for that. That's really difficult getting that round there, isn't it?
Yes, that was Danny Crevet, I think, wasn't it, who was having a bit of an understeery moment in the Hyundai. Hyundai's to the fore, really, at Silverstone, wasn't it? We've got Lewis Kent and Max Hart, both in Hyundai i30Ns, leading the points at the moment, and actually joint points leaders after a win and a second place apiece last time out at Silverstone. They also shared the fastest lap honours, so 48 points each for Lewis and Max, with Dan Kirby, who got himself on the podium in race 2, third in the championship. After Silverstone, at least, Paul, looks to be developing into the Lewis and Max show. But the good thing about this particular championship, these kind of cars, is that we have this international balance performance that comes in to stop one car having a big advantage. We also have championship success ballast. So I don't expect those two to have it all their own way today.
No, I don't either, you know. And I know that these kids are the bravest of the brave, but still, it will bring them back into the clutches of the other drivers. As you can see there's a lot of movement going on. Dan Kirby again having a big slide through there. Welcome back to the championship, Darren Wilson as well in the Astra, so good to see him out there. Jack Constable, great car that is, really good car, and you can see the massive change of direction through the second chicane here at Castle Combe. So really good stuff, and it's good to see again a strong field of cars, and these guys really pushing on now. Don't forget about these Volkswagen Racing Cup cars as well, as we see Jeff Alden coming through in the Golf. But yeah, they're fast enough round in those cars. You can see a few more.
Yeah, here to that one. We saw some good racing from the VW Racing Cup last time at Silverstone, particularly between Ollie Turner and Jack Depper, so expect those two to both be fairly competitive here today. This session then is the 20-minute qualifying session that will set the grid for our first race a little bit later on today. Drivers now starting to get into the groove. They got some temperature into the tyres, starting now to see lap times getting down to roughly what we saw in the 10-minute free practice session earlier on today. Max Hart topped the times in that session with a 1 minute 7.89. As off very wide goes Dan Kirby. Lucky to get away with that, Paul.
That is the third time I've seen him absolutely flat out and lose the rear left. Just no temperature in that rear left tyre as he comes over the crest and then turns right, and it really is a struggle for him, isn't it? That was the only time I've seen him go off. He caught the others, but obviously that wasn't one that he was going to catch. Yeah,
just a little bit too much understeer perhaps dialed into that car at the moment, so they might be wanting to make some setup changes. That of course was one of the advantages of having that 10-minute free practice session earlier on, but the track conditions have changed since then. It was foggy, it was a little bit chilly. The sun has burnt through that fog now, though. The ambient and therefore track temperature will be climbing and that will no doubt change the way that the cars are handling. I started to say that Max Hart did a 1 minute 7.9 in that practice session earlier on. Well, already Jack Constable has gone quicker than that in this qualifying session, 1 minute 7.5, so he currently tops the times. Max Hart now, though, joint points leader, goes top, and that is Ollie Turner, who has gone off the road up at Quarry, I think that is, isn't it? Ollie Turner, who had some miserable look at Silverstone. He wasn't able to start the first race because the car cut out on him on the grid, and his qualifying session, Paul, not getting off to the best of starts this week.
No, he must have had a wild old moment there, because that is some speed that you're taking in. As you can see, Constable, who was at the top of the times in a minute, just getting past a couple of our guys, Jeff Alden there. So you can see the difference in the cars. Just lateral grip, really, and a bit more power, isn't it, really? The Volkswagen Racing Cup cars are fantastic cars to get into the championship with, to be fair. I've driven quite a few of them. Fast cars with a H gearbox. They're really, really difficult cars to drive, but great when you really get into them.
There's Jack Depper then, who is the front runner at the moment in the VW Racing Cup, his Scirocco that went really well at Silverstone, and Jack in good spirits when we spoke to him this morning. Mind you, he always is, isn't he? I've never seen him with a frown on his face, or his father Martin for that matter. Jack heading up there through Avon Rise into Quarry Corner, the most crashed at corner, I think, in British motorsport, isn't it? And it's easy to see why, because you're really barrelling along there through Avon Rise. You're braking on a curve to the left before a right-handed corner, and it's bumpy, and it's a bit blind. Oh, and there's zero runoff area as well.
Do you know, it is a proper stat that I think it's the most crashed at corner in Europe. Wow. And that's a stat from a motorsport insurance company, I'm sure. Unless someone's lying to me, I've heard that before. So, yeah, probably not what the drivers want to hear, but it's a good job we're not in direct radio contact with them. But I tell you what, Constable's doing the job here. He's half a second up the road from Hart, who I massively respect, like you do. So, yeah, interesting stuff. And we've got a car into the pits, haven't we? That's maybe for a bit of a tyre change. That was Jack,
I think it was, yeah. Yeah, Jack Constable in then, so he has done a lap time of 1 minute 7.5. Did that quite early and then wasn't really able to improve much beyond that, which perhaps tells me that tyre wear is becoming a factor. I'd imagine the left front tyre here, you referred to Thruxton earlier on and how there are similarities between Castle Combe and Thruxton. Thruxton notoriously hard in a front-wheel drive touring car to manage that left front tyre. Same problem here today?
Yeah, but not as much. I would say the circuit is less abrasive than Thruxton. Oh, the corners are high speed, but it's not a massive problem as that. I think that's Kite, isn't it? It's gone. Oh, red flag. Okay.
Yes. The reason he's slowing is because the marshal's waving the red flags. The reason they're waving the red flags, though, I'm afraid I can't tell you. There is clearly a car off in a difficult position, so we'll try and fill you in on who that is and what exactly has happened as soon as we find out. So the rest of the field pour their way down into the Castle Combe pit lane. At the moment, the time is still ticking down in the qualifying session. We've got just shy of halfway through the 20-minute session. There you can see the red flag being held rather than waved. The white flag is being waved because there's a slow vehicle, presumably a course car, out on circuit. And we will find out momentarily what the problem appears to be. Before the red flag came out, though, Jack Constable, who's headed for the pit lane anyway, had set that benchmark time. Max Hart and Lewis Kent, joint championship leaders, inseparable at Silverstone, inseparable again here at Castle Combe. And we were saying earlier on this morning, weren't we, off air, Paul, that one of the good things about this championship battle that's developing between Max and Lewis, they're both in the same car, run out of different teams, but they're both in a Hyundai. So obviously with TCR cars, the BOP changes from one event to the next, but they will always have the same BOP. So they're going to be pretty much together, I think, for the whole season.
Yeah, I think so. And it's a very valid point that you make because of how the balance of performance works, the BOP, especially having the same car, they're never going to be too far apart from each other with that handicap, like you rightly say. So, you know, with the championship ballast and everything else, it's going to be pretty close. But I think already we've seen that has hindered a couple of those guys there, because Constable is a quick old peddler, to be fair to him. So he's half a second up the road at the minute from Hart and Lewis. So I'm intrigued to see how this is going to go, because it's an interesting part here, because they've only got, well, the clock is actually still ticking, 9 minutes and 20 seconds to go. Clock's ticking. Sometimes it stops with a red flag. So let's see how it goes timing wise. But that's going to be something that Constable's going to love, because unless he's going to fire on a new set of tyres to go again, then his time may be safe.
Yes, we've had a few delays earlier in the day here at Castle Combe. Some of the support categories have had a couple of red flags, so it may be that to save time, they're just going to keep the time ticking away, which makes sense as far as the way the day is going to go together goes, but as far as the drivers that haven't yet set a time, not brilliant news. The driver that isn't yet back into the pit lane, by the way, is Chris Wallace in the VW Golf, running in the VW Cup. Third quickest at the moment in the VWs was Chris, but sadly he has either gone off or stopped somewhere out on the circuit, and judging by the fact we've got circuit maintenance vehicles heading out on track, I'd imagine that potentially means that he's gone off into a barrier somewhere. Spectators back here at Castle Combe. It's a bank holiday Monday here in the UK. For once, Paul, we've got some bank holiday Monday weather as well for the spectators to enjoy. It makes such a difference having them back here. At racetracks, you've got plenty of space to socially distance. The Castle Combe in particular, loads of great vantage points around the circuit. And it's amazing the difference that makes to the atmosphere. As soon as you walk in the morning, you can just tell, yeah, we're getting back to normal now.
Yeah, the sense of it on the way in, actually, it was interesting for me. I was, well, you were here at 7 in the morning. So once we come through the gates and seeing the spectators here, and, you know, they're actually really cool because they were respecting social distancing rules. You know, they come and spoke to you but stayed far away. We've got the COVID-19 regulations in force at Castle Combe today, so in the places where we need to wear face masks, that's what we're doing. But it's great to have a chat with a couple of people actually that I've not seen, and people messaging me on Instagram and Twitter saying, I'll see you later on, Paul. And I was thinking, what's that? Oh yes, fans can come back. it's actually quite nice, isn't it, like you say, and everybody wants normality back, but the one thing that never changes is that race cars look so fast around Castle Combe, mate. I am so looking at the comms box before, and we were talking about it when Max Hart come round that last corner, Camp Corner. Honestly, mate, how far would you say we are away from here? About 300 metres?
Something like
and
that,
I was still scared. Yeah. He looked like he could join us in the comms box in fifth gear.
It is, but that's how you get a lap time around here, isn't it? And to some extent at any racetrack, I guess, it just looks more committed here because the cars are moving around so much on the bumps, and there is that lack of runoff area, which, you know, the drivers, on the one hand, complain about because they know if they make a mistake, it's going to bite. But at the same time, it is these old school circuits like Castle Combe, like Alton Park, like the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, Cadwell Park, and other, that the drivers all look forward to coming to because they really genuinely enjoy hustling the car around. I actually went on a track walk with a group of drivers yesterday evening, which hopefully we'll be able to show you a little bit of later on in the day. And they were saying that the corners where they can use the curb and they're up on two wheels and they're sideways, you can just see the smile on their faces as they relay the stories that they've already experienced from testing. It is a proper driver's circuit.
Yeah, and it's like you've said a few times to me, when something is old school and, you know, it's not particularly narrow, this track, but it's the runoff. It really catches your attention, you know, when a tyre wall and grass banking and barriers are only, you know, 6-7 foot away from you. That really grabs your attention, and that makes certain drivers brake earlier. It makes certain drivers go real steady. You know, it's just a great place to come, and it does separate people who are maybe more confident than others in what they have underneath them machinery-wise.
Yeah, the perfect place to come then if you're relatively experienced at touring car racing, as is the case for quite a few of the drivers out there. Will Powell is one in particular who I spoke to yesterday, had a bit of a nightmare at Silverstone with an electrical gremlin that just wouldn't go away, meant that he didn't get to race at Silverstone, sadly. So this is effectively where he is making his front-wheel drive touring car racing debut. Even Jack Constable, who's on provisional pole at the moment with now only 5 minutes left on the clock according to the timing system, he is in his first season of front-wheel drive racing as well. So I guess it's one thing to go to a place like Silverstone, Paul, and try and learn a completely new craft, but at least there you know that if you get it wrong, you're less likely to be punished. Coming to a circuit like this, which is all about commitment and faith in the car, if you don't know how to react to a front-wheel drive touring car, that can't be easy.
No, definitely. You know, it'd just be like, you know, myself who I've driven front-wheel drive cars for years, it'd be like me jumping in here, I don't know, jumping in for 7 or 8 laps at the end of the day and seeing how close I was to the fastest time, and then compare it to me doing exactly the same at Silverstone. I'll guarantee you I'll be so much closer at Silverstone because I know that I can push that envelope a bit further than usual, because when you have a slide in a front-wheel drive car, you know, you have to regulate the throttle to try and straighten that car out. So it's a difficult ball game, and if you've only got the grass to run over and a tyre wall to hit, compared to somewhere like Silverstone where it's not that not too bad and you're not going to damage the car that much, then that is your brain playing with you. So you really have to be careful how you push the envelope, and hopefully we can get this session back underway, because it does look like maybe, unless the car has stopped, that someone may have touched something out there. So yeah, we'll see, won't we? But it's great. It really is so cool to see fast front wheel drive cars around here. It's great.
Yeah, we came here with TCR in the very first year, back in 2018, and it was such a hit. We had some good racing as well. The fans really loved it. They've been crying out for the championship to make a return to Castle Combe. Always such a well-supported circuit as well. And we are now back, but running out of time in this qualifying session. Just 3.25 minutes left on the clock. We're awaiting news on whether that's going to be extended at all. If it's not, then Jack Constable's going to get his first ever TCR pole position, with Max Hart and Lewis Kent behind him. Bradley Kent fourth. We haven't spoken about Bradley yet, younger brother of Lewis. Brad was bang on the pace. He was actually one of the revelations of Silverstone, wasn't he, as far as his raw pace was concerned. But his whole weekend crumbled at turn 2 in race 1, because he got a puncture on the green flag lap, went off, and we didn't really see him trouble the front runners all day. Will that change today, do you think?
Yeah, it was really sad, wasn't it, for him? Because we were so revved up at how well he'd done. But I think that will change. I mean, depending on what goes on with quali, with the time now really running down, we're on to 2 minutes 30 seconds. So it's going to be an interesting call to see what the Clark does, because I don't know if they're going to get back out again. We don't know what damage has been done, if there is any, but it must be damage to the circuit. But going back to your original question, yeah, the younger Kent, I really do think he's going to be a thorn in the front driver's side this week, or today, as this single day event is taking place. So he's only a tenth and a bit off his brother, and 8/10 off Constable. But I tell you what, Constable's banged in an absolute beautiful lap there, because it takes so long to get the rear tyres up to temp. So however long is left, it's not going to be a lot if they do go green again. You've seen how badly affected Dan Kirby was by cold rear tyres. Getting the tyres up to temp is difficult. And I'll tell you one thing as well, mate. The track temperature will have changed in the last, I reckon, 5-10 minutes. Bit of wind, but I think the track temp will have gone up as well. So that could play havoc with the balance front to rear of your car.
Yes, because you hear someone say that, oh, it's a bit warmer out there now, and to my untrained brain, I think, oh, well, good, more grip. Everyone likes more sun, don't they? But actually, that's not the case. It gets to a certain tipping point where it's now too warm and it starts to get a bit greasy and less grip then, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You could energise the tyres too much. They have a specific window that the Goodyear will work in, like any other manufacturer tyre. And you just have to, pick your time and make sure that you don't over-energise the tyre throughout the whole of your lap, and get it over its tipping point, like you say. So, yeah, it's going to be a bit of an interesting one. But, it like I say, it's the delta front to rear. And what I mean by that is how hot the fronts are compared to the rear. Because if you've got too much heat in the fronts, it can pull the front round and the rear loses grip. Or you could have the rears that are too hot compared to the fronts. And then you'll get what's called understeer, where the front axle gives up. You turn the steering wheel, and the car just wants to go straight. So, yeah, and then we've just been redone on the time. So we've got 11 minutes and 33 seconds pointed out by yourself, Andrew.
Yes, I do occasionally spot things of interest. So, yes, 11 and a half minutes, and they've frozen the clock there as well. So we will have 11 and a half minutes of qualifying. It's obviously going to take a while for this. We are assuming barrier damage to be repaired. I'm not actually sure. I can see it out of the window if I peer off into the distance, Quarry Corner, which is, as we've mentioned, a fairly popular place to have an off. And I can't see any activity there. So it's not Quarry, but there are still another group of corners where he could have gone off.
Andy, what do you want to talk about now? Do you want to talk about this guy walking down that looks like the Fonz? We can have a chat about him. If you want to pick some out of the crowd, I'll tell you what.
One of the great things about having spectators back is you can do a spot of people watching, can't you? It's always good fun, this. And but what we can see is they've all found their own little spot. They're all sat there with their packed lunches and their fold-out chairs, and they're all keeping their distance. And
what about your man here with the purple top on? He looks like he's trying to stare me out. It's not a nightclub, mate. Let's all chill out.
He even nodded at you when you said that. He is definitely onto you, isn't he, Paul?
Do you think we're on Circuit Comms as well? We better not be.
Surely they're not brave enough to play us out to the whole circuit. Blimey. This is a car. We can talk about cars, Paul. I know a thing or two about them. Probably more about them than I do people, if I'm completely honest. Well, it was a car. It is now something that vaguely resembles a VW Golf. He has gone in hard on that left-hand side, hasn't he?
That will not be seeing a race today, I would say. That looked like another car had hit it, or it's hit something very blunt. For that to have such a big impact, I'm glad that wasn't on the driver's side, but the roll cage just stood up well to that.
Yeah.
That's not nice. That I'm just trying to think where there could be something really on the track that you would catch the end of that might be a problem. That's not what we want to see. But driver obviously out. We'll give you an update on how everything is.
Yes, more news on that as and when we get it. But we talk quite a lot here at Castle Combe about these rector-cell barriers that are lining the circuit, which do absorb the impact really well. The trouble is they're not everywhere, so if you pick a spot to go off where you don't have rector cells, then you're going to feel it.
So I've just had a gentleman from Castle Combe come and talk to me about what's happened, and it's actually post 7 Marshall point that he's hit.
Oh,
that would explain the damage, because they're pretty blunt, but they're well covered by tyres. But once you've got into the tyres and hit the hard bit that looks after our marshals, that's what's done the damage. I tell you what, that is a huge impact. That car is a write-off. That's huge. So post 7, I'll have to think about where that's pretty much midway around the circuit, I would say. Probably going to Bobby's.
Yeah, probably about around Bobby's. There is a Marshall's post on the inside of the track there, I think. I remember from my track walk yesterday. What damage has been done there, Paul? I mean, obviously we can see there's a lot of cosmetic damage, but the left front suspension, steering arm, that's going to be wrecked, surely.
Yeah, but the underneath of the car, the sills all bent. That car will need to be on a G. You will not see that car today. Absolutely. It looks like it's hit a lamp post, to be fair, on a road car. Actually, I mean, that's not very nice to see that, is it? That damage.
Yeah, the green one, 88.
Of damage. I'm sure the guys will have a proper look at it. But when you start stripping stuff back like that,
In the back,
all the damage, that's never going to be straight. Here, racing today, there's no way. If it did get out, it would definitely be tracking out one way or the other.
That is a shame, because he was third quickest, as I said, at the moment in the VW field. There are only 5 of the Maximum Networks VW Racing Cup cars out there this weekend, or this week I should say. Not used to covering motorsport on Bank Holiday Mondays. So yes, it's a shame to lose it, but we'll see. We've seen miracle work being done by teams in the past, and I'm sure that the Maximum crew will be diving on that car as soon as they can to try and get it back out on circuit. So that's the bad news. The good news is that we are going to get the session resumed, although I see they've now locked a couple more minutes off the time. We're back down to 9 minutes now. The clock frozen at 9 minutes. We have an awful lot of racing to pack into today, not just the Touring Car Trophy and TCR UK races, but also a whole host of Castle Combe's resident championships. And so that is why we need to try and keep the programme moving as best we can. When we get started, though, the drivers will at least now have a bit of time to get into some flying laps. And Paul, I'd imagine this is one of those circuits where you need a bit of a run-up, don't you? You can't just go out there and bang in a quick lap straight away. I mean, forget about cold tyres. The driver needs to get themselves into that rhythm that they always talk about. It'll take you a couple of laps to get there.
Yeah, exactly. And like you rightly say, it's not about, just going out there, seeing if you've got a bit of grip, and then cracking on like you would at Silverstone. You really just can't do that here. You're constantly waiting for the rear tyres, the cold rear tyres, to snap you into some sort of horrific angle, because the more you lean on the tyres as you get into the corners, especially the faster ones here, you start to then get onto the part of the tyre on the outside of the Goodyear that is not up to temperature. And when you've done that, that's when you start feeling the rear of the car slide. And it's not ideal. So yeah, they're going to have to work their ways up to it. There'll be improvements, and I would say that if we do get going on the time we think we're going to get on track, I think you'll find that the last laps will be the ones to have. Interestingly, though, you might have a situation where you've put a heat cycle through the tyre, and it might actually work for you. So a heat cycle through the tyre gets rid of the release agents and things like that. It cools down, and then it goes again, and the tyre just feels a bit more refreshed, giving it a breather, so to speak. So yes, I'm very much looking forward to some proper, flat-out front-wheel drive qualifying laps, mate.
Yes, most definitely. I think green flag is back out again now, so the session is resumed, and the cars will be able to head out onto the circuit then. And Jack Constable, who set this provisional pole position time, will now have a bit of a time to defend it now. He's got 4.5 tenths of a second in hand over Max Hart in second place. Lewis Kent third. Fourth place Bradley Kent, fifth Dan Kirby, Bruce Winfield sixth at the moment, Will Powell is seventh, which I think he'll be quite happy with actually, given the lack of seat time that he's had in that car. And then eighth quickest Paul, a new driver to the championship, making his TCR debut, Alex Kite, who is a bit of a local specialist, isn't he? This is his local circuit. He's been racing, and indeed is a former champion in the Castle Combe Saloon Championship. Never driven a TCR car before. He's in one of the, in theory, slower DSG cars as well. And so Alex is going to be an interesting one to watch for here, I think, because yes, he's in a car that perhaps will be hampered by being a DSG car, but he knows the place like the back of his hand. He knows all the little tricks of the trade. He's got his own little reference points for braking and turning in, knows where the worst of the bumps are. Is that more of an advantage here, for example, than if you were, for example, a Silverstone specialist or something?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a great way to explain it, that, because you just know what any information you can have on a circuit that is very, very spectacular and quite dangerous and not rewarding if you have a big moment. It is, all that information is definitely worthwhile to have in your locker, because you'll know the quirks of the circuit. Like, you know, it's a bit like Alton Park. You know, that's quite narrow, it's challenging. You know where you really can push it and make up that extra 2 tenths. And you know some little tricks that maybe others don't. And, you know, sometimes people might turn in a bit later to one corner than you do, and you can find the time as long as you do something specialist on the way out as well. So, yeah, I know so many drivers that have kept secrets for years and years and years, and then you get to drive with them, see their data, and you're like, you cheeky little so-and-so. That's what you were doing with throttle positions and things like that. So, yeah, Kite is definitely one to watch. He's a pretty spectacular lad from what I've seen in him.
He's actually currently leading the 2021 Castle Combe Saloon Championship, in which he is also racing, I believe, this weekend. Certainly his car is here, so he's getting plenty of track time. And, you know, he's done literally thousands of laps of this circuit. Admittedly not in a TCR car, but still, he's done thousands of laps of the track, and yet almost every other driver I've spoken to this weekend have said they've either never been here, they've been here once, but it was years ago in a completely different car, or they've done maybe the odd test day or something. So that has to surely be a little bit of an advantage. Right, lap times will shortly start to come in. We're getting down into the 1:08s again now. They should be able to build the tyre temperatures up reasonably quickly, because as Paul said, the track temperature keeps on climbing, and so we should, with 6 minutes still left on the clock, see some more improvements. Here comes Max Hart then towards us, heading down towards Tower Corner, one of the better overtaking opportunities on the track. A big stop here, probably one of the biggest braking points into the right-hander. Use as much of the curb as you can on the inside. There's no real curb on the outside to use. Then you fling it into Bobby's. A big compression just there in the middle of the chicane. Max was telling me yesterday he really enjoys that part of the circuit, probably his favourite corner, because you can really use that camber to carry the speed through, and then you head down into Camp Corner. And let's hope we see him through here. Well, we're going to see Jack Constable possibly behind him, just barreling into the turn, and through the final corner, which is a really full commitment corner. Let's see if we can follow one of these cars through maybe. We've got Bradley Kent and Lewis Kent coming towards us there, the second of the orange and white Hyundais, and they head into that final turn then, fully committed. We are seeing improvements though, and Max Hart, that lap time we followed through the second half of it at least, is good enough for pole position. A 1:07.329, he's less than half a tenth quicker than Jack Constable in second, who also improved. So Paul, they are straight back up to speed.
Yep, straight back up to speed. With high-speed corners as well, you will be able to energise that tyre and get it up to temperature a bit quicker than normal places, but I'm still expecting times to tumble, because that temperature change now by about 5 degrees, I reckon, since they last were on track, has really helped them out. You can see like a heat haze. I think temperature-wise, I think it's about 15 degrees Celsius, something like that in the air at the minute, rising to 22 later on this afternoon. So we've got the little stats on from TSL, but I do think it's going to be a good thing for the tyres in general, just to get that little bit of confidence that you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're starting to see that drivers really have found that confidence now. Max Hart's next lap was a slow one because he backed out, I think, to get some clean air. Through the final corner they go there. There's Bradley Kent. Now, Bradley Kent is fourth at the moment. Lewis, his brother, next car through, is third position, and the two of them are separated by just 82 one-thousandths of a second. That changes, though, now, because Lewis Kent improves to third. Dan Kirby splits them now in fourth position. Dan Kirby in the Cupra moves on to the second row of the grid ahead of Bradley Kent, and Bruce Winfield into sixth place. That means that people like Darren Lewis, for example, in that NGTC Mercedes A-Class, he's dropped down into ninth place. Will Powell is down in 10th position. We're seeing quite a lot of chopping and changing as Max Hart and Jack Constable, two fastest drivers in the session here, getting in each other's way a little bit there. It looked like maybe Max Hart had to bail out of that lap.
Interesting, that, isn't it? As you say, I don't know whether he's picked up the toe for that time as well, but yeah, that is a very, very good time. I mean, a 7.3 is pretty fast, to be fair. I think now the best of the tyres is probably gone for the front guys, but maybe some of the other guys in the midfield can probably benefit from just pushing on a little bit harder.
Yeah, Dan Kirby then, who I just mentioned, had jumped into fourth position. Remember, he is third in the championship, had a solid weekend at Silverstone. He benefited quite a lot from the reversed grid for race 2, managed to get himself a third place, but he had podium potential on raw speed all weekend. So good to see Dan qualifying well, and now he jumps into third ahead of the joint points leader, Lewis Kent. So Dan Kirby is absolutely flying. He's only 3.5 tenths off pole position. That is a pretty stellar lap. These Cupras definitely seem a little closer to the pace this week, don't they?
Yeah, they do, don't they? It's obviously with the balanced performance helps a little bit, but that's a cracking effort, that is. And yeah, I mean, Constable, it'd be nice for him to be on pole, wouldn't it? But time is definitely running out for him now. But yeah, might have another chance. These tyres are pretty good, as you can see the Hyundai there of Hart just running a touch wide, which is easy to do. And like you were saying before, the car getting flung through that bobby chicane, that's a proper Larry effort through there, that is.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? The cars really move around and they're using plenty of curb as well. So there is Jack Constable then. He is second fastest. He needs to find just over 4/100ths of a second to get that pole position back from Max Hart. Hart did not improve on that previous lap. What about Constable? No, same for him. They're both almost identical in pace though, lap for lap. They're matching each other. So it's shaping up to be an entertaining pair of races between those two, if nothing else. The real question mark here then, I guess, is over the Kent brothers, because they seem to be struggling a bit more to cope with this championship ballast, don't they, and the BOP changes, than Max Hart. And we made the point that the Kents are run out of a family-run team, Max Hart run out of a different team. Do you think that maybe Max's team have just managed to wrap their head around that BOP change a little bit better?
Yeah, you know, you can make changes to the setup to make sure that the car runs maybe a little bit better with the weight, because remember, it affects the traction when the car's driving forward, and it also affects the car when you're hard on the brakes. So there's a lot you can do with the damping. You can do things with springs, just so it lessens the effect of that BOP challenge that you've been given with that extra weight.
Darrell Wilson back in the championship. This car was out with a different driver at Silverstone. Darrell back, though, to the scene of probably his most famous incident when we first raced here with TCR UK, when he ended up off in the cornfield and managed to find a little pile of bricks that was hidden in the cornfield. The cornfield, which is completely clear of any debris. He managed to find the one solid thing to hit in there and did quite a bit of damage to the front of his car. I think that was in the warm-up session, actually, here about 4 years ago. Darrell Wilson in the only Opel, actually, as it is, an Opel Astra in the field, and Darrell is 6th quickest. Do you know what? That team, they run on such a small budget compared to the other teams. They run on tyres that often have seen their best long before they even rock up at the circuit. And yet, whenever he's here, he is competitive. He's a good little driver, is Darrell.
Yeah, fair play to Darrell, and it's great to see him back out there. I know it was a difficult one for him at Silverstone to sit it out, but yeah, very interesting. So that should be checkered flag out. Bradley Kent's already in.
Yeah, Bradley's bailed from that lap a little bit early, hasn't he? I missed that, the checkered flag coming out. So the session is over. Of course, if you're still on a lap, you can complete it. So we've still got some cars out there, but we've seen fewer and fewer improvements coming in over the last few minutes. So Max Hart's pole position looks as though it's reasonably safe. Yes, because Jack Constable's just crossed the start-finish line and did not improve, nor did Max Hart. So Max Hart then is going to take the pole position here, it would seem, for round number 3 of the Maximum Networks VW Racing Cup, incorporating the Goodyear Touring Car Trophy and TCR UK. and he's going to have Jack Constable in his first season of front-wheel drive racing joining him on the front row of the grid. Dan Kirby is third, Lewis Kent is fourth, so he's got a few positions between himself and the pole sitter. But Max Hart and the number 11 car of Jack Constable will make up provisionally that front row of the grid. Danny Crevet coming through there. Is he going to improve? No, stays down in 12th position. And Alex Kite, who there you can see coming into the pit lane, is the only other driver that hadn't yet finished a lap. So it looks as though we are done now with our, what has been a dramatic qualifying session. A shame to lose Chris Wallace early doors there in the VW Golf, but everybody else appearing to have a pretty clean session. There goes Jack Constable, just going into the chicane at Bobby's by the looks of it. As up at Quarry, the fans watch on after an entertaining qualifying session which will set the grid for our first race of the day, round number 3 of the championship. We are due to be getting that race underway just after 2 o'clock, hopefully, anyway, barring any further delays later on in the day. Back with you on air at about 1:45, so make sure you don't miss that. It's going to be a fantastic pair of races as we move now into the middle portion of the season and we start to really see how this championship battle is going to develop. At the moment, it's advantage Max Hart as far as the joint championship leaders are concerned, Lewis Kent and Max Hart. But from what we're seeing through that qualifying session, there is the potential for other drivers to possibly get themselves in amongst them. Certainly Jack Constable, Dan Kirby have. Bradley Kent is 5th. He'll be perhaps a little disappointed about that. He's out-qualified his brother Lewis last time at Silverstone. He's about 2/10 or so slower than him this time, and only 11 1/1000ths of a second quicker is Bradley Kent than Darrell Wilson in 6th. Bruce Winfield is 7th. Alex Kite came home in 8th. Will Butler 9th. And Darren Lewis then in the first of the NGTC cars. We've got 3 NGTC cars with us this weekend. We've got the 2 Mercedes A-classes of Darren Lewis and Toby Byrne, who were with us at Silverstone. Also, Dan Wiley finally brings the BMW 1 Series, the XBTCC BMW 1 Series into the field. Dan's had a bit of a troubled weekend, I think, though he is slowest in the session, actually slower than the VW Cup car, so I'd imagine there's some sort of a gremlin there with the BMW, but Dan Wiley, great to have that car back in the championship. And of course, one of the great things about having the NGTC cars racing with us is that we have rear-wheel drive cars, which of course the TCR formula forbids rear-wheel drive from being used. So the introduction there of the NGTC cars into this touring car trophy has allowed for a bit more variety in that respect. So that is qualifying done. Momentarily, we'll be able to hear from the front-running drivers after that qualifying session, and Paul O'Neill has wandered on down to the Parc Fermé area, which is a bit of a walk from the commentary box, but that does give me a chance to let you know about what's coming up a little bit later on in the day. As we said, we've got all of the TCT and TCR and VW Cup action for you today. So race number 1, due to start at about 2:05, will be on air at about 1:45 with all of the live build-up ahead of that race, and then race number 2 will be kicking off at about 5:15 local time, on air just before 5 o'clock to give you the build-up for that one. So plenty of racing to watch out for. We've also had a chance to chat to a lot of the drivers over the course of the weekend as well, bring you some of the stories that have come out of testing and now qualifying and through the races as well. So if you can't be here at Castle Combe, then you won't miss a thing when it comes to the Touring Car Trophy and TCR UK. We will keep you abreast of all of the updates as we move through the day, I should say. It's going to be a really interesting first race then, isn't it, of the day, a third round of the championship, with Hyundai and Cupra sharing that front row. In the VW Cup, by the way, Jack Depper was quickest, Ollie Turner was second, and there were actually 6.5 tenths between them. So Jack Depper had a little bit of an advantage there. Jack Depper and Ollie Turner, the Scirocco, ahead of the Golf, with Russell Joyce third. Chris Wallace was 4th, but doubtful that we'll see him out maybe in the first race, at least later on. And Jeff Alden, 5th of the VW Cup cars. Right then, out in the sunshine, he's got the right place to be, hasn't he, really, is Paul O'Neill. So let's head out there and see what he's getting up to.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, pretty cool qualifying session, to be fair, wasn't it? It was
bit part, wasn't it? A bit difficult for the drivers. There's nothing worse than having a red flag situation in a qualifying session, full stop, especially round somewhere like Castle Combe, where there's so much commitment needed to get around the circuit, get those tyres up to temperature. And now I'm outside, I actually wish that I'd not put this jacket on, because it is actually quite hot. But yeah, we'll be speaking to the two pole guys in a minute. Max Hart did a fantastic job. I've just seen him come in. Here he is. He's going to come over to us. So we'll have a little chat with him. But a fantastic effort with the weight he was carrying, to be fair. So if we can have a little word, Max. Hello, boy. There he is. He knows the score. He's putting his corporate gear on. We'll socially distance ourselves, mate. But what a fantastic effort, especially with the changes that will have been made, how the car feels with the weight that was maybe in the car.
Yeah, honestly, it's just a credit to the mechanics. You know, they've set that car up absolutely mint, and I had the easy job of just going out there and doing what I had to do. And thankfully, I got a lap all together and put it on pole.
Did you get a tow at all? I seen you behind Jack Constable for a bit. It looked like that was a bit later on, so you might have just done it by yourself.
No, I never got a tow, not from my quickest lap anyway. There was a few times where a couple of sectors I was up and then I would have lost it towards the end of the lap, but I think that was due to the tow, so no, not on my quickest lap anyway.
What do you think about the circuit in a whole? It's very bumpy around here. Have you had to soften the car off on the dampers at all, or did you make any changes while the red flag was out?
Yeah, certainly we were struggling with the rear a lot, so we tightened that up a little bit just to make it more solid. But the circuit itself is absolutely brilliant. You know, I love it so much, and I've had success here before, and it's continuing. So hopefully, continues into race one.
Well, you've got race one to look forward to. But how difficult is it for the red flag situation as a driver to, you know, maybe at Silverstone it wouldn't be too hard, but these barriers are close, aren't they? Did you have time to think about that, or I know you are the most focused driver I've ever seen. When you know, I always think you're playing on your phone. You're actually not. You're doing all sorts of mindset coaching stuff, it looks like to me anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'll just sit in the car and then I'd keep going over the lap and just keep doing it in my head until I get it right. I love to run the track in the evenings as well. Just keep my mind focused on it. You don't think of the barriers, you know. They look miles away from me anyway. Yeah.
What do you think it made? What do you think made it for you with the lap you did? Because it was a pretty spectacular lap with the balance of performance weight that's been in the car.
Yeah, that's the thing. We've got success ballast and we've got the new BOP. I think I just got all the sectors right and put a lap together, and it was beautiful.
It sounds like a good. You're not even sweating either, mate. You look like Carlos Sainz after that F1 race at Monaco.
No, trust me, it's warm in there. I've had a few minutes out of the car already, but no, that's the hardest part, especially with that red flag. Continued time in the car and you're absolutely roasting.
Right, okay, you're going to win later?
Of course. No, I don't know. Hopefully.
Hopefully, mate. No, I do love it. What about your championship rival, Lewis? What are you thinking about that today? You're just trying to get a few cars in between him. What are you thinking? What's your thoughts, mate?
Well, certainly I need to finish in front of him anyway. So that's the goal. Whether that be first, second, or third. Ideally, first I want to finish. But I think it's just important that we finish ahead of the other Hyundais, because they're going to be my biggest competitor come towards the end of the season.
What do you think about the heat? Is it going to be difficult a bit later on in the racing? Maybe is it going to make a change to the car and how it feels?
Yeah, I think it's going to affect the tyres a lot. So we're going to have to be careful of, you know, your first few laps of how aggressive you're going to go, because you're going to have to save your tyres towards the end, because the heat is just only going to get hotter from here on, and it's really going to affect those tyres.
Top man, all right, fella. If you could hang around for a bit, that'd be cool. We might come back to you. We're going to speak. Well done. We're going to go and speak to Jack Depper. Jack, you can, if you stay away, mate, you'll be fine with that. Yeah, you don't want to come too close to me. Listen, my man, you had a good Silverstone. You did all right. What are you thinking about this circuit? In one of those cars, I bet it looks a bit lively, mate.
It is pretty lively. I mean, it's one of those, because it's not completely flat, it's bumpy all over. It is pretty scary, especially when you're going 120 mile an hour into the first corner. But no, it's fun. I'm enjoying myself. So yeah, that's all you can ask for, really, isn't it?
And that's what it's about, isn't it? Actually, I'm going to ask you, mate. Just talk us through a lap of what makes it here. To be fast, because it's not just a simple place like Thruxton where it's flat out, take your brain out. There's a bit more to it, isn't it? It's quite technical.
I mean, I like to think so, but Thursday was my first time around the track, so I don't know. So, foot flat. Well, we'll start from the last corner, because that's where you get your speed for the main straight. Slight little bit of braking, not too much, into last one. Foot down right before the apex, so you're getting maximum speed down the straight. And then as you come up, over the kink, you're braking on the kind of uphill bit, and then over the next kink, I'm just coasting that, and then onto the brakes, down to third gear, chuck it in to try and get as much rotation as possible. Then again, foot flat, trying before the apex, and then first chicane, stamp on the brakes, chuck it in, and neck other way as well, over to the right. Again, I'm trying to keep my foot in before the apex, and then down. I'm trying to think now. Trying to think of the corner names. You got the big right-hander. Again, it's not heavy braking for me. It's kind of like a half brake in fourth gear. Take that, and then last chicane, again, stamp on the brakes, down to third, chuck it in, chuck it out, get the back end a little bit lively, and then up towards the last corner again, light braking, and then off you go.
I do think it's a pretty scary place, though. Did you turn up? I can't believe you've never been in. Did you not turn up and go, why did I say I'd pitch up at this one?
Well, I didn't really know what to expect. I watched my first onboard on Wednesday night, and just chilling, really. I mean, I'm just weekend warrior, really, aren't I?
Mate, honestly, it's it feels to me like a really dangerous thruxton, but so rewarding, though, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you think the tow makes a difference? Did you get any chance of getting in behind anyone?
Can't say I got the chance to get behind anyone. It probably does, because like I said, 120 mile an hour down that straight, if you can get a tow, then you're probably going to edge a couple more miles per hour going into the first corner. If you can shoot it up after you've had the tow, then the place is probably yours. But we'll have to see in the race if I'm behind anyone.
And have you had a look at the grid yet? Do you know where people are? What you're thinking?
I think my arch nemesis is starting P2, so it should be a good battle with me and Ollie again. And we'll go from there.
Yeah. Can I ask you about that battle at Silverstone?
Fun.
That was quite a battle. It was quite interesting to watch on the television, but it looked close.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was a bit of tit for tat. He nudges me, I nudged him, but rubbing his racing at the end of the day. Obviously, I came away with a penalty, but hey ho, sometimes it happens sometimes. But like I said, I had fun. I'm just here to have fun.
Well, you look like you're having fun before, fella. So good luck for the race. Is it a win?
Of course.
Well confident, mate. Have a good one.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Top man. Well, there you have it then. The two pole sitters as we look into Parc Ferme. There's a lot going on in there, isn't it? So the cars will have to stop for quite a while and make sure they're all past the technical checks as well. Joined like magic is Andy McEwen, our lead commentator. Andy, what did you make of that, and why has it took you so long to run here?
Well, because it's a nice sunny day and I don't really like rushing when it's a bit warm, it's... no, I've been just chatting to Max Hart, our pole sitter. He is so pumped after that qualifying session. Reckons there's a bit more time in the car as well, so that's ominous for his opposition, isn't it? But, some interesting stories to come out of that session, I think.
Yeah, was there anybody that caught your eye? I thought Dan Kirby did another good job. I shouldn't really expect anything less, actually, from Dan Kirby. I thought it was a real good effort.
I was a bit concerned. When we had that red flag and he was down in about 6th or 7th place, I was starting to think, maybe he's not quite able to translate the Silverstone pace, which he had, to here at Castle Combe. But then he went straight out there on the restart, banged in a time for 4th, then 3rd. He was troubling 2nd place as well. So, and Dan's a good racer as well. So I think he's going to be up there all day.
Yeah, I think so as well. And what do we make of the damage on the car? It's not great, is it? That car took a big hit, didn't it? Big hit.
It really did. I mean, I was just chatting to someone actually. It hit a Marshall's post. Marshalls are all fine, by the way. Driver is absolutely fine. But it was a big hit into tyre wall, just one row of tyres and then Armco barrier behind. So it's going to do a lot of damage to the car. I'd be surprised if we see it again later on today, which is such a shame because Chris was actually pretty competitive in the first part of the session before he went off.
Yeah, and I think the racing overall could be quite interesting because of the change in temperatures from qualifying. And I know they tested here on Thursday, I believe, so I'm not too sure what the weather was like then, but any big changes in track temperature, is going to be interesting. Max had already made changes within qualifying, so there might be some changes there, mightn't there?
Yeah, and I think you'll feel it more here, I would imagine. You can probably tell me more, but I'd imagine you can feel it more here than at a Silverstone because you are so reliant on the car doing what you want it to do. When you commit to a corner like Camp Corner and there's these big bumps in the middle of it, if your car isn't absolutely in the sweet spot, it's going to hurt your lap time because you just don't have the confidence to really commit to those corners. So it's going to give the teams a bit of a headache. It's only going to get hotter now as we move into race number 1. It's going to be pretty much at the hottest point of the day. Not only does it affect the way the car feels, but also you have to try and tweak the car with tyre management in mind because you can't go for a super aggressive setup when you've got to last through 20 odd minutes and you've got to keep those tyres on the car.
And that's a good point, and you actually knows more than me. Anyway, right, we're going to be our first round actually will be live back on air around 1:45, I believe. So make sure you join the stream, get involved. This is going to be a real classic weekend of racing here at Castle Combe. We'll see you later on.
I just need one of you guys.